Welcome to the Victory Multisport Podcast. This is Coach Sarge, and I'm with Coach Scott.
Hey there.
Coach Kenny.
Good morning.
And our special guest for today, Ben Erdeljac.
Good morning.
Athlete extraordinaire.
Beast.
We're going to talk all about you, Ben, and tell some stories. So thanks for coming in. Thanks for spending some time with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, this is an honor. You know, I've watched Breakfast with Bob during Kona week, Bob Babbitt.
Right.
You know, I've always thought, what would it be like to be interviewed by Bob Babbitt? This is so cool. This is better than Bob Babbitt. So,
Sarge is the Bob Babbitt of Mars, Pennsylvania.
Of Mars, yes.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, for all the listeners out there, we're excited to bring another episode of the podcast. This is season 2 of the Victory Multisport Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see a little bit of difference here in the studio of how we've rearranged some things. We've got some sponsors on the wall, including Project One, who's a very, very aggressive with helping us be a better team, about our athletes to be better, and really supporting us very, very well. In addition, we just came off of really a couple weeks of travel and excitement, almost really a couple months, right? We were in Lahti, Finland with our athletes that made 70.3 Worlds. We were in Nice, France with our athletes that made the 140.6 men's championship this year. We went to Maryland and had 6 brand new Ironman cross finish lines on their first time hitting that 140.6. And then 2 weeks later, we just last weekend were able to see 13 of our athletes come across the finish line at Muncie at the 70.3 Ironman in Muncie, Indiana, which is, from what they tell us, the longest running half Ironman distance race in the United States. It was a race prior to Ironman taking it over. Next year is the 45th year that they've been running a 70.3 in Muncie, Indiana, continuously. And so it's amazing venue. We had wonderful weather. Our athletes, every single one of them checked a box, hit a goal, did a PR, accomplished something, beat a demon in some way on that course. And so we're so proud of them. And in October, we've been trying to get together with, all the activity. We have over 25 of our Victory athletes and another half dozen of our Trust the Plan coaching athletes that are running a half or full marathon. So October is for runners. And Runtober, and you're going to see more about that in our weekly newsletter next week. All the people running, all the different races around the country.
Big sponsorship, too, we got in there.
It's huge.
Buffalo Creek.
Yeah, so we actually are sponsoring the Buffalo Creek Half Marathon here in the Western PA. So those of you that are local and want to come out and see us, we're going to have the tent. We're going to be celebrating the finish line, maybe hanging some medals on people. We'll see what they let us do as one of the sponsors of that race.
We're going to get Val's aid station on that one.
Oh, definitely, for sure. I think Val may even be running it as part of her taper. I'm not sure. She's also in the Marine Corps. So got a lot going on, and we're really just so proud of all the athletes that are out there killing it on their training and setting up their races and, moving in and out of multiple endurance sports, right? So you've got the guys that are doing tries for the first time that were runners, and now we've got triathletes that are dropping down in the fall to hit a distance endurance race and do a run, and it's just amazing. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. I think in Muncie, the 13 in, 13 out is great. I think the big thing is the breakthroughs. The huge breakthroughs, the overcoming, and the athletes were great. The 13 of them all had days. You saw it in the newsletter, PR after PR, breakthroughs, get through the swim, got through all 3, overcame an injury. Mm-hmm. But, I think it's one of the things that we do very, very well inside of Victory is where there's one, there's many. I think there might have been 20 people show up from hours away just to spectate their friends. They're athletes. And it wasn't just family. It was the Hollies coming in from a state or 2 away. Mm-hmm. Denali coming in from Illinois. You had people coming from Pennsylvania just to see what unfolded that day. And the inspiration that comes from those races or what lights everybody's fire, knowing that, oh, I wanted to slow down, but hold on, Val's right there. I got to pick it up and run, and seeing her out at mile 40 or 45, standing at the top of a road when I'm bringing Murph in was awesome. Watching Denali and her dance at, when we're out on the run.
Yeah, mile 35 on the bike, they were out on a run and caught you guys. So they were doing some good cheering out there.
Yeah. And we had age group winners. We had world's qualifiers, 2 of them. And I think the thing that was really cool is not one person left until Murph rolled in.
That's right.
8 hours and 7 minutes. And in Muncie, that last hill before you go into the chute, there had been 20 of them chanting his name.
You're just one of those things where, the phrase that the kids are using right now, it hits different.
All the feels.
That hit Murph, man. He had all the feels. Like he was really loving it in a good way, but very emotional coming across that line for his first 70.3 in like 7 years, right? And having setbacks and injuries those 7 years that could have just ended it for a normal person, but he's uncommon, just like the rest of our team, to, keep coming back, keep training, and then, the support that you personally gave him, Kenny, by helping him through that and keeping him on his pedals and like getting him focused, like, let's go, we got to hurry up.
I thought we were going to have a fist fight at like 1/10 into the run. He just had an interaction with his family, and he was trying to move, and his son was trying to give him something. And he said, no, I got to move, Max. And Max reached again, and he said no. And then he got upset as a child would, like, I wanted to give dad something. And then he tried to stop to try to like get what he wanted. And Max was hiding behind Jen. And I literally was yelling at Jen, get him moving. Like, Sarge said, we have 4 hours. That one said 3. I don't know what it is. Get him moving. And he goes, I don't know why you yelled at me. And I go, you'll understand when you get that medal around your neck.
That's right.
And at mile like 12, when he was crying because he knew it was in the bag at that point, I literally said to him, dude, I'm sorry. I know I was inside you all day. Keep you moving. Keep moving. Let's go. We got to go. Keep moving. But I said, I will not let you fail, ever let you fail. And we're going to do this. And it was fitting. I mean, there's a beautiful picture of him and him screaming with his fists up in the air with the get back up shirt on. I'm right beside him, a little bit behind him, which in my mind is great because I wanted him to go in first. And we were both screaming and you could see muscles, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
And for me, I've often said the best race I've ever done was Muskoka because I got to ride him in. This one was trumped that because I got to get Alyssa through. And then it was really cool getting to swim as a coach in the water. At one point, I did a backstroke, for a while, watching to make sure she looked good, making sure she was sighting the right way. And she said at the end, she goes, man, I didn't get hit once. I'm like, you want to know why? Because I was like the bulldozer. I'm the one getting hit. I got hit like 5 or 6 times by this one dude. And she's like, it was the greatest swim of my life. And I'm like, I think I dislocated my shoulder from that one dude who kept saying, I'm sorry. He'd speed up, get into a breaststroke, speed up again. I'd hit him. He's, it's just crazy, but it was an awesome day.
Well, it's the story of you and Murph, whether it's Muskoka, whether it's in Muncie, and then what you did for Alyssa and everybody else. It's a metaphor for every single person on the team and how you feel about them and how big your heart is, Kenny. And so just, we want to shout you out today on this podcast that, that is part of the secret sauce of victory, is having that big heart, behind everything that we do. So, and we've got Ben here today, and, Ben, there's never been a time where you struggled, right? You've always been an athlete. You've always just been like a Superman, right?
Always had it together, right, Ben?
I wish that were true. I mean, maybe on the outside, some people think that, but on the inside, I mean, I've been an athlete all my life, and there's been plenty of times where I've had doubts about myself or even failed in what I was trying to achieve. And I mean, that's normal for all of us. I think I'm probably a great example of a normal guy that saw triathlon as a challenge that would push my comfort zone, push me outside of my comfort zone. And that became very appealing to me. To kind of piggyback off of what you guys are talking about there with the team and all, I mean, triathlon can be a very individual, lonely sport. And what Victory has built with basically the family of Victory and the support that it gives athletes, is just phenomenal. I think each of us as triathletes, we realize we're on an individual journey, but we're always looking for that something that's bigger than ourselves, and victory is that thing for a lot of us.
Well, Ben, that's how Kenny and I and Scott and the other people that you see on the wall here at the Victory Clubhouse that before victory was even a thing, was just part of what we did. And we had friends in our neighborhood. We say, hey, do you want to run? And they're like, yeah, I'll run. Okay, we're going to run at 5. Okay, 5's good. And then something would come up. Oh, we got to meet at 4:50. Oh no, 4:50 is too early, right? But we had good times, right? And it was always better to train together than to train by yourself. It was always better to be in a group, and we bring that forward. But so let's rewind the Ben story all the way back, because you shared a couple of facts with us before we started to hit the record here today. Where did your athleticism start or bloom or come out in you? When did you really get going?
I mean, I always have been attracted to sports since I was a little kid. I remember as a 3rd grader coming home from school and asking my parents if I could play on the basketball team. And I remember thinking they would say no, and they said yes. And I was like, oh, wow, that was really easy. So I started playing basketball, Little League baseball, just dreaming to play in the major leagues, and then I got into basketball and I wanted to play in the NBA, and just like any kid, I had posters of athletes on my walls. But I think the drive that I had as an athlete comes from my parents. My parents just always preached to my sisters and I to just do our best, whether it was in athletics or school or whatever it was. And that message just really sunk in with me. So whatever sport I was playing or whatever I was doing, I was just always trying to do my best. And then I was very fortunate to have people, coaches, support from family to kind of help me develop as an athlete. And, from there, I had a lot of good opportunities and experiences.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we preach in the Boy Scouts, do your best, and that's always a motto, but I think that, I have seen some people that, look down upon that phrase. But I think if you put it in perspective in the right way, where you're doing your best, but you're truly doing your best. We had Matty Moe on a couple episodes ago, and he talked about being competitive in the training, in the session, in the minute sprint, or in the, the interval that you're doing. And I think that is the definition of best in that regard. If your parents are telling you to do your best, they're not telling you to, it's okay to not be good.
Right.
They're telling you do everything, leave it all on the field.
Right.
Leave it all out there. And I think if you really look at it that way, whether it's in scouting or in education or in sports or in, career that we all have, that's what it's all about. And that's when you feel fulfilled yourself. That's when people respond to you and are magnetically attracted to the energy that you produce and that you provide. So it's great that your parents had that. So that's 3rd grade.
Yeah. That was my earliest memory of sports, is 3rd grade, coming home and asking, can I play on the basketball team? Yeah, that was sort of the first memory I have.
Ben, what was your favorite sport as you grew up?
Yeah, basketball. Yeah, basketball was my favorite. And
it's interesting because basketball didn't get you into college, right?
Right. So I actually, my mom was cleaning out her attic the last couple summers, and she pulls out these boxes from when we were kids, and she gives me this box, and I start going through it, and it's a bunch of school papers from middle school, and I have these drawings of me playing in the NBA, or goals for, I went to St. Joe's in Verona and playing on the St. Joe's basketball team, and all these basketball goals. That was definitely my favorite sport. I ended up not having as many opportunities in basketball as I did in football. And so whenever I went to high school, I really excelled at football, and then ended up going to Duke University on a football scholarship.
They're having a killer year this year, right?
They are. It is very exciting. Coach Elko has turned that program around, and to see the excitement and the energy, especially the game last week against Notre Dame, that home game. Unfortunately, we came up, a play or two short, the energy and the excitement around the program is very nice to see.
So did you always do 3? You pretty much were in sports the whole year. And did you transition to Riverview, or did you always stay St. Joe's?
So I went to Catholic school in grade school and middle school, and then I was actually kind of signed, sealed, and delivered to go to Central Catholic. But the summer before 9th grade, I was hanging out with a lot of my friends from Oakmont and Verona, and I realized, like, I want to be part of the community here. I really don't want to go to a school where kids are from all over Pittsburgh.
Transplanted, yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have that community backing and support. And so I kind of flipped on a dime, and I ended up going to Riverview for 9th grade and all of high school. I do remember I went to Central Catholic basketball camp the summer before 9th grade, and they had like the football coach come and talk to me, sort of like recruit me. And I'm thinking like, well, I'm kind of already coming here. So, but they were saying like, well, if you go to a school like Riverview, you won't get noticed. You come to Central and you will. Well, that ended up not being true.
Right.
And I take a lot of pride in the fact that I went to Riverview in my hometown, single A school, small school, because a lot of people think you can't get noticed at the small schools, but you can. They'll find you.
Man, I'll tell you just from personally. So Coach Shep and I, we coached the local high school team, and we were at an invitational once, and we were just casually chatting. And I mentioned your name, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Ben Erdeljac, 400-meter Whitfield champion, Riverview High School, year of what?" And it just to have it resonate, whatever 20 years later, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
It is amazing how much in our culture we appreciate athletic achievements throughout a person's life, right? And yeah, things that I did in high school that people still bring up. I appreciate that, and I'm honored. But it is pretty amazing, and I think it really goes back to like the focus and the do your best, right? I think as human beings, we really are attracted to people that have that level of commitment and focus, that they don't just say the words "do your best," they actually embody it, right? And when somebody displays that, a lot of times on the athletic field, we remember it.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, I think that's what draws most everybody to what we're doing now, like with the endurance sports, because to go out and run a little bit or to just do Pilates, or that's all great. It's great for your health and keeps you in shape, but is it competitive? Is it showing that you're pushing beyond what you thought you could do, or hitting a wall but still going? All right. And then, running has established that wall that you hit in a marathon as this imaginary spot where things start to like go sideways when you have to work through it. We've just all of us at this table, and all the listeners, most of them have found that in triathlon, because it is more phonetic. You get to break it up. You get to be in 3 sports. And there's just a lot to it that pushes people all around, like psychologically. We had some wins last weekend in the water. That's a big one for people, hitting that cold water in a
I know
lake.
what that's about. Yeah, we can talk about
and those types of things. I think so. It's really come to be, and certainly Ironman has helped with the marketing and the showmanship of the races and the worlds, and having these pros out there really, making livings at doing things like that. But there's a whole, millions of other people of us that are, doing it as an amateur age grouper that just enjoy it, as much or more maybe than they are at their job. So, yeah.
Hey Ben, I'm kind of curious. So grew up loving basketball, excelled at football, played football in college, and just as I mentioned, track champ in high school. Coming out of college, between that period and where you are today, how did you get introduced into tri? Like, where did that hit your radar?
Yep. Team Hoyt, Dick and Rick Hoyt, 2001, I think it would have been. I'm sitting in my little apartment townhouse in Durham, North Carolina, having just graduated from Duke. gave the NFL kind of a shot, went to a training camp like in Atlanta, really worked hard. I received a call the night before the NFL draft from the Colts, say like, hey, be ready, we might give you a call. But never got a call. The NFL didn't work out. And years later, that was probably the path that I was supposed to, not go down. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting in my apartment watching the coverage of the Ironman World Championships in Kona, and they show Team Hoyt, Dick, who was
beautiful,
would do the races with his son Rick.
Right.
They show them finishing the World Championships. It's dark, right, the end of the night, and tears coming down my face, and I just thought, not only were they so inspiring, but the idea of conquering an Ironman in one day to me was like just so appealing. And at the time, like I could run, I could ride a bike, I could not swim. So it was like even more appealing because that would totally be something out of my comfort zone. And so it was like in that moment, I think I said actually to my girlfriend at the time, like, I want to do Ironman sometime. I don't know when it'll be, but at some point that would be awesome to be able to say you did that. So that kind of planted the seed. And then years later, the opportunity to start swimming became available. And that's whenever I decided, hey, I'm going to give a triathlon a try.
Amazing.
Love it.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think that people that are attracted to this and have come to this sport and come to this world are, those that want to do hard things, want to do things that are difficult, whether they're physically hard, right? And that's certainly part of it, to go faster, to sustain the exercise for long periods of time, to have the endurance, the grit, to do hard things mentally, to overcome fears of water or even biking. We've had a couple of our athletes that just like really scared to clip in and really scared to be on aero, right? And not up on the hoods and not standing up tall, but getting down tight and trying to get fast, right? And hold that. So there's a lot there. There's a ton there that really attracts people to it. But when we have those breakthroughs and we have those light bulbs go off or they hit that moment where they've accomplished it, it's like nothing else. Like, Alyssa coming out of the water, or Hogg coming out of the water in Ohio, which was just his nemesis, right? It was just a thing that he couldn't get past. And there was nothing. The water was the water. The water doesn't know anything but how to be water. And, but he got through it, and he's like, his wick is lit. Alyssa's wick is lit. She went to another triathlon this weekend. So she's back to back. She flew to Florida, took her bike, and did a short sprint, but I might even been the ocean.
It was definitely the ocean.
So she's like on from that. So it's really good stuff.
I think one of the coolest things too, everybody has their own journey, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily about even whether you finish or what time you finish in or what place you get. Like for somebody that's trying to overcome, let's say, the swim and finish the swim, and if they don't on a given day, the fact that they come back the next day is just so inspiring, right?
It's a massive win.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes back to the focus and the do your best. If you don't accomplish it today, try to accomplish it tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And I think triathlon as a sport embodies that more maybe than any other sport out there.
Ben, you know what I love about what we've talked about so far is that you're sitting in your room, you see the broadcast of Ironman, and you think, I'm going to do that. Yet you have no idea how to get from point A to point B.
Right.
And you're, by all measures, an elite athlete. And I think for most people, when they see an elite athlete, they think, this comes so easy. Like, they have so many advantages over me, but yet you probably didn't even know, like, what kind of bike do I need? What size of bike? what is clipping in?
Yeah.
How do I swim? Like, how do I put a plan together? How do I but the cool thing is you didn't even really think about that in the moment. You decided, all right, I'm going to do this. And then everything else you figured out along the way. I think that is what I hope a lot of people can relate to as we sit here and talk today, is that whether you are a first timer or an elite athlete, you still have to go through that process to get to your goal.
Yep, absolutely. And so I had never been a swimmer. I mean, I wouldn't drown in water, but I couldn't swim laps, and I definitely couldn't breathe and things like that. So I remember eventually I moved back to Pittsburgh, and I was enrolled at Pitt to get my teaching certificate. I'm a high school math teacher. And so I started to swim at Trees Pool. That became the first pool ever that was accessible to me. And I remember going to Trees Pool and swimming one length and getting to the wall and thinking, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Because, and meanwhile, there are people in lanes next to me swimming lap after lap. And I'm thinking, I was a Division I football player, and this is humiliating. But again, that was also part of the appeal, because it was so far out of my comfort zone and so challenging that there was attraction to it. And it just keep coming back. And eventually one length became one lap, and then one lap became two, and on and on and on. And eventually you're swimming in Kona, Hawaii for the Ironman World Championships.
It's intense.
Yeah,
It is. It's
intense because Trees, was it long course or short course when you went in there too?
It was short course.
Because it's intimidating when they take those ropes out and they just say, have at it.
Yeah.
It's intimidating.
Yeah.
But see, a lot of our athletes say the same thing. Like, I could run all day. You stick my face in the water, and they're thinking four different things. What am I doing with my kicking? Did I breathe? I have to get to the wall fast enough. Let me speed up. Now all of a sudden I'm hypoxic and I'm about ready to throw up in the water.
Right.
And then they're like, I'm done. I never want to do it again. Calm down, keep coming. Because to your point, one stroke after the next stroke led you to Kona.
Yep.
Yeah, Ben, what was the time frame from that time you got to Pitt and you swam that very first, effort to doing your first Ironman or what, just some time?
I think probably 2003. So 2001 would have been when I saw the Ironman World Championships on TV. 2003 is probably when I came back and was going to Pitt. And 2014 is when I did the Ironman World Championships. So it was many years. And there was a slow evolution of me as an athlete towards endurance sports and towards triathlon.
Right.
Yeah.
So it says it took time.
Absolutely.
And it took that commitment that you had made to wanting to do that goal, to accomplish that goal, and to stay after it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were smaller races and other things that you did and keep yourself interested and get some micro accomplishments in there that fed that. A couple medals in there before you did your first Ironman of some kind.
Yeah. I mean, I remember my first triathlon was, I think the Slippery Rock triathlon. It was a small sprint.
Oh, yeah. Was that outside or inside?
Well, the swim was inside in the pool, and then the bike and the run were outside. And it was like early spring. It was basically winter still. And I remember diving into the pool, which I was very uncomfortable doing. And my goggles, were sideways on my head.
One up on his forehead.
Yeah.
Full of water.
I get to the other side of the pool and I stop and I fix my goggle. I mean, I was just so foreign to swimming. As I told you guys earlier, I literally would look around for sharks in a swimming pool. That's just how uncomfortable I was in water as a swimmer. But I just kept at it. And little achievements were big achievements to me. And that goes back to everybody has their own story, right? You're accomplishing these little goals, and when you keep coming back day after day, it's I don't know, it became an attraction for me. Yeah.
So over a 10-year span, when did it click?
Yeah. The 70.3 World Championships in Las Vegas. So This would have been 2011, because I remember it was the 10-year anniversary of the bombings of 9/11. Mm-hmm. And I qualified for the 70.3 World Championships in Providence, Rhode Island. One of my high school buddies, Greg Owens, did the race with me. And at that time, I was coaching football at Mount Lebanon while being a teacher. And I was doing triathlon, when I had free time.
Playing around with it, Division I athlete.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we went to Providence, and I had an idea that maybe I could qualify, but probably only if a spot dropped down to me. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I was doing it with my buddy gave me extra motivation, because he was a very good swimmer. He actually swam as a kid in high school and things like that. And so I remember getting in the water for that race and being very committed. There was no anxiety that day because I was razor focused. And I ended up getting, I don't know what place it was, but a slot for the World Championships dropped down to me. But I had a decision to make, because I had coached football at Mount Lebanon, where I teach, for 7 years. And I had talked to the head coach about, hey, I'm doing this race. I might have a chance to qualify for these World Championships, but I would have to miss a game during the season. Well, the head coach told me I would have to choose. He said, I have a football program that I have to run. And I said, okay, I understand. So I went to Providence, ended up getting a spot, saw that it was going to drop to me, called the head coach again, double-checked with him. My buddy convinced me, he's like, you need to do this World Championships. And I made that decision right then and there. And that was when, at that point, I knew I was still very raw as a triathlete, but I also saw some opportunity. Mm-hmm. So went out to Las Vegas, did the World Championships, had a decent day, nothing great, but Beth Shutt, who is now Beth Shutt Peterson, she was the primary mentor for me early on in triathlon. She helped me buy my first wetsuit, buy my first bike. We would ride together, and she would always ride out in front of me, I couldn't keep up with her. Well, she did the World Championships then also. Mm-hmm. So we kind of went out there together, and we did the race. And on the flight back home, I asked her about Blue Skies, which you guys are familiar with, because she was part of Blue Skies. And I said, how do you get on the team and things like that? Because I knew I needed more guidance and more support in order to sort of take that next jump in terms of being a triathlete.
Ben, I think you're a culture guy too. You like that team atmosphere, that team culture.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, like I said, victory gives people that family and that thing that's bigger than yourself. I was looking for that because I knew that I didn't have the knowledge or the, I wouldn't say commitment, but the understanding of what I had to be doing to make improvements, right, to get to the next level.
It sounds like even in that example in Providence where your buddy is a really good swimmer, and because you were so committed to doing that, and no matter how hard it was, you were ready to go. You had almost no anxiety about it.
Right.
So that iron sharpens iron, mentality of being around people that are better than you doesn't bother you as much as it motivates you to try to keep up with that bike or keep up in the swim and to be competitive.
I mean, I would look for that because there's been 1 year out of all the years that I've done triathlon where I had a coach, and that was in 2014 when I had the goal of going to Kona. Every other year, I look for people that are better swimmers than me, people that are better bikers than me, people that are better runners for me, and I just kind of follow them and try to keep up. Like, I know Kenny, as a swimmer, we've swam sometimes at Oxford back in the day, and I would ride with Matty Moe. I remember saying to Matty Moe one time on a bike ride, I said, I don't have a coach, so I swim with Kenny, and I ride with you because those guys are going to push me and make me better, and yeah, it's been quite a journey, and there's, like I said, a slow evolution to being able to race at Kona.
So when you asked her that, how long before you landed with Blue Skies?
So I asked her we had a conversation on the plane ride home, and I think she basically went to Ty Blue and said, hey, here's this guy. He'd love to be part of the team. And I think it was maybe like a couple weeks, and Ty had extended an invitation to me, and I became part of Blue Skies.
That's when you originally started to pop up in my life. I started seeing that baby blue on it, and I started scratching, because that's when Sarge and I were really starting to make our headway into the sport and seeing you guys around. And it was the Electric Factory, man. That team loaded.
Yeah. I mean, that was, for me to become a part of that team was a little bit intimidating, because you're right, you would see the kits on the race course, and I knew the capabilities of the people on the team, and had trained with some of them from time to time. It was a fairly elite team in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, when triathlon was sort of just becoming a bigger deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know. We knew Billy from the bike shop, but this is the time where we're walking in saying, "Hey, we want to do a try, sell us a bike." We had no idea what. We had no idea. Garvin. We had no idea. They were like, "Oh, you'll need this and this."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay,
yeah,
it's a lot."
Yeah,
it's a lot of money.
G sold me my first tri bike. What was it? What was the place down in Aspinwall? Trizilla. Yeah. But back to your question, or Scott, about like I didn't know how to get from point A to point B. I remember going to Trizilla and saying, "Hey, I'm thinking of doing a triathlon. My father-in-law has a hybrid. Can I do a triathlon on that?" They were like, "Well, I guess you could, but you probably wouldn't want to, and here are the reasons why." I mean, I had no clue, but again, just talking to different people and learning along the way, I started to figure things out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we would walk in, it's just Top Gear at this point, right, in Wexford, and we said, "Yeah, we're doing Ironman." They're like, "Have you ever done a tri?" We're like, "No."
Yeah.
But I need a bike that's going to get me to that spot, right? We kind of knew we had work to do, but we were very confident that we were going to figure it out.
Yeah.
We had no idea how long it was going to be or what it was going to take. But they were kind of like, "Okay, well, we'll sell you a bike for sure." But they were still kind of weirded out by our attitude a little bit. But it all worked out. All right. And I still own the bike that I bought from them. I still ride it. Kenny still has his. It's dedicated to the Wahoo right now, but they've been tried and true. They worked out real well.
Yeah.
Well, it is funny because I had no clue. Boomer was like, "You could ride the Zillionople High School. It's great. It's comfortable, safe." And I had no clue. So I looked at the GPS, or at that point, MapQuest, probably it's the fastest way to Seneca Valley High School. I was on. How many times have you seen people ride 79 on their tri bike? Never. I rode the tri bike.
I think it's actually illegal.
From Cranberry up to, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm up here. It's easy. It's good. It was fast." I was getting like tailwind from the trucks pushing me. It's like, I don't think you're loud up there.
Do you realize how many people on 79 in their car were like, "Look at that"?
Hey, look at that Jag. What's he doing?
Trying to get himself killed.
Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's interesting because I think you're talking about two ingredients that lead to success in this sport, and really in anything. It's you're willing to put in the hard work, right? So you went into it saying, "I'm willing to put in whatever work is needed to get a result." The other piece is you're vulnerable. Like you recognize, I'm going to have to ask questions that could potentially embarrass me in front of what I perceive as experts. But if I don't do that, I'm never going to be able to achieve what I want to achieve.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm a high school math teacher, and I tell my students, the best students ask the most questions, right? Because how if you're smart enough to understand you don't understand something, then ask a question, right? Because if you don't, then maybe you're not as smart as we thought. Yeah. So yeah, vulnerability, I mean, is huge. And like my journey playing Division I football and also trying to play in the NFL, that camp that I went to in Atlanta, there were a lot of other big name Division I football players there at the time. And coming from Duke, I was certainly not like a big name Division I football, but to see the vulnerability that some of those guys had was very enlightening to me. Like you guys remember the Steeler Antoine Randall, right?
Yes. Yep.
So he was at that camp, and we're doing like 7-on-7 drills, pass drills, and after a few days, he says to me, he's like, so what team do you play for? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, I'm trying to make it just like you are. He said, I thought you were already in the league, dude. And I was like, do you realize that I've seen you play on TV and you've probably never seen me play on TV, right? And so there's a guy that had a great college career and then a great NFL career, that he was vulnerable enough to think that he wasn't the best guy at this camp, right? And so, there are athletes like a Michael Jordan and a Muhammad Ali, and where maybe you wonder if they had doubts, but I'm pretty sure that 99.9 of us athletes have doubts. Yeah.
Aunt Randall, Indiana Hoosier.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Study that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See, one thing I study you, Ben. I do. I'm a people reader, and that's not to creep you out, but I've watched you over the years. And one of the things that is so impressive of you and how you carry yourself, there's a humility that you go about your business. You're approachable. You let people in that may not be in the same power of you on the bike, swim, or even on the run. You encourage them to come. And I watched you at Coach Scott ran a track workout, and you had came one time and you were blowing everybody out on the quarter mile repeats. And you stopped when you were done and you made sure to go up to everybody and you gave them, great job, way to push it. Shane Boyd tells me all the time, he's like, man, Ben approached me. That's a legend. And he's telling me, keep going. And I think that is just such the leadership side of you and how you approach this, that you were once that guy looking for Chad Holderbaum to say, Ben, great swim. And you know what that was like to be asked to come to the table with that guy. Mm-hmm. And there you are being that leader in the clubhouse. That's Team Ben. That's the captain on the team that's making sure everybody else knew they did a good job. Push harder this rep.
Yeah.
Follow me. Come with me.
Yeah, and that's the attraction of just recognizing a person that has a goal and they are taking those little steps towards that goal. Like Shane's a perfect example, and I've told him this before. He's an inspiration to me because he has gone through things in his life that I have not, and he has overcome challenges in his life that I can't even dream about overcoming, right? So forget triathlon. Like, dude, you're the man because of what you've dealt with and what you continue to deal with. And now you're out here trying to be a triathlete. Like,
yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like,
and
I got chills on my arm.
I think also, Ben, you realize that no matter what the time was on those 400 repeats, that for every single person, they hurt just as much as yours hurt.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yours just might be a few seconds faster than theirs, but they're in just as much pain as you are, pushing as hard. If everybody's at the same perceived effort or the same zone, it hurts.
Yep.
And so we all feel that, and it just doesn't matter, right? Because we're all shared suffering.
Yep.
And we're all going for our individual goal, but as a team, we're out there together doing it, sweating. And I think that's why, Coach Scott, your track workouts and your cross country, I think people just love to be able to get together and do those types of things. When we go long run at North Park, it's fun, but you're with like two people because everybody just, the field starts to stretch out and you don't see anybody for 25 minutes or, maybe you see them once a loop. When we do those track workouts where it's interval based, you might lose them for 30 seconds, but you'll start over again and we go again. And then we start over again and we go again, which I think is a really important dynamic in how we do those.
Ben, I love right there how you were willing to put yourself in somebody else's shoes for a second to gain perspective on what they may have endured. I think, and I am guilty of this, a lot of times I'll think, nobody has gone through the suffering or the hardships in life that I have. And then I meet somebody else and I'm like, wait a minute, maybe that they had it worse.
Right.
You know, it was different. And then it forces me to think through, man, could I have endured that?
Right.
Could I have, made it to a spot of success? I mean, just willing to do that. Coming back to Kenny's point, I think that is a fundamental of leadership that does draw everybody in.
Yeah.
We see it.
Yeah, Scott and I were in Arizona with Sarge last year, and we had two of our guys. Harley has overcome stuff that I, again, couldn't even imagine. And he said to us walking out of, I don't know, maybe the village, or we were looking to swim in or swim out, and he said, I'm going to pass where I slept under that bridge when I was homeless. And I'm thinking, man, no matter what happens tomorrow,
Right.
you've won, man. Like,
Right.
You're winning in life,
Right.
Because you're not under that bridge anymore. And he's leading people.
Yeah.
He's praying for them in the morning that
Yep.
he hopes when he sees them that they'll understand that there's another route that
Right.
you can take.
Right.
And you don't have to be his best friend that died in front of him. And
Yeah.
you just sit there and you look at like, wow, like it is insane. So like that pressure cooker of the Rev 3 or that Lake Placid for you, like yeah, you're in it, but when you step back and you think, man, oh man, like I had it easy that day.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Gives
so
me
wait,
chills.
let me make sure I understand this. He was doing a triathlon and he ran
Full Ironman.
a full Ironman and he ran past the bridge where he used to sleep under.
Correct.
Yes.
The course, he used to sleep under the bridge the course is on.
So let's understand this. To me, that's winning the Super Bowl, right? Maybe back-to-back Super Bowls. I mean, could you imagine? He had to have felt so much accomplishment as he ran past that, right? That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's exactly what we're talking about. Like everybody has their own journey.
And to get to know him even more, like he'll be back to that bridge to help the next guy
Yeah.
figure it out, whatever
Yeah.
that is, right? Either their addiction or their
Yeah.
problems. That's what he does. That's his mission in life right now, other than what he does personally to keep himself fit and to accomplish things like running a 250-mile ultra,
That's awesome.
running multiple 100-mile ultras.
He just did 100 last week last weekend. And he raises money for the Prescott firefighter community because he used to go into the mountains and try to put fires out. And he's doing that now. And just a world-class,
Just a good guy.
A plus caliber guy.
Selfless.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But that's a great perspective, Ben, and that, let's just bring out even some of the other athletes that, understand that point that you made. And it's very compelling
Yeah.
to understand that, whether you're in a track workout or you're at an Ironman race or you're at your school,
Right.
and you're dealing with a problem, you got to try to, put yourself in the person's shoes that you're speaking to and try to understand what perspective they're coming from. I think it helps
Yeah.
be a leader and really get things accomplished, right? Because if you don't do that, if you can't come to eye with people, it's always going to be angstful. It's always going to be, tougher to communicate because people aren't on the same wavelength.
Yeah. So we've used the word perspective a couple of times. So I'll just tell this brief story.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned earlier before we started recording here that so when I was in 5th and 6th grade, my dad used to wake me up on Sundays and ask if I wanted to go for a bike ride with him. And we would ride all around Pittsburgh together. But a lot of times we would stop at this one place. It's a Veltry's restaurant on Coxcomb Hill over by like Plum, Oakmont, where
A nice climb up there too.
Yeah. So my dad used to we'd ride up Coxcomb Hill and he'd always say, go for the gold. And, that was like motivating for me. But we'd stop at Veltry's restaurant and the parking lot looks over Springdale. Springdale was like our big rival at Riverview, right?
The Dynamos.
Yeah. But my dad would always say, you know what that is? Perspective. And he'd always say the P word. So I go back to my parents instilled in me a strong work ethic and the perspective. And I was very fortunate to have that.
So if you get to look at your swim, bike, and run, obviously we know you're a strong runner. We know that coming up from what you grew up in. But bike, you're known. Matty Moe, who's one heck of a bike rider, said the reason he's that type of a bike rider because of your focus on that machine. And when we see you ride that thing, it's just different. The way you go about it, like Shane said, you passed him one time in Mighty Moraine, like he was standing still. It sounded different. And like, is that because you used to ride with your dad? Like, what made you so strong on the bike?
Yeah, I think probably riding with my dad was part of it. Maybe also just sort of my physical makeup. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a light guy. When I raced Kona, I was probably the lightest I've ever been, and I was probably like almost 190. So I think I had a lot of power to begin with. I think I also meshed well with the bike mentally. Like swimming was out of my comfort zone. Running, I enjoyed, but it was different. It was hard because you're pounding on your legs. I just loved to hammer the bike. I just loved to hammer it. And I would get a lot of motivation of coming out of the swim behind a lot of people, even from my first triathlon. After the race, people be like, you were basically in last place out of the swim and almost in first place after the bike. And so I had the motivation of trying to catch up, and I just could hammer the bike. I mean, and I would just try to like start picking people off right out of the water. And every time I picked somebody off on the bike, it was like,
give you a little bit more.
Yeah, it was like an energy pellet, like in me.
He loves it.
Yeah,
he almost punched me.
Again, I came from like not understanding that I couldn't ride a hybrid bike in a triathlon to slowly getting more equipment. And, the bike was where everybody spent their money because,
right.
You could get real fancy bikes and they would help you be faster, but they also just made you look good.
Oh,
right?
yeah. They're styling.
Yeah. And so, I'd be out on a bike course and I'd pass somebody with a disc wheel, which I didn't have. And in my mind, I'm thinking, nice disc wheel.
Yeah.
Because I just ate you alive.
See you later. Yeah. Yeah. So, you just I just love to hammer the bike and I was strong on the bike. Yeah.
It's insane. I mean, because like that picture you took of him.
Oh yeah.
In Mighty Moraine, like you could see through the wheel, the spokes, like it just looked like the revolutions were cut, like moving. Yeah. And you're down your arrow, and it is all focus, all business.
Yeah,
it's one shot. We're going for it.
Yeah, yeah. And like you mentioned, Matty Moe. I mean, when I would ride with him, it wasn't a workout. It was a competition, right? And I don't know if he knew that, but I knew that for me.
He treated it the same way, right?
Yeah.
If we're riding, we're racing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Well, he even said some of those training days were like absolutely insane. So what happened on race day?
Yeah.
It paralleled what happened in the training.
Yeah.
Because the trainings were way harder.
Yeah. And that was probably another thing about me is when I was really committed, like let's just take that year 2014, I would go out and I would train in a way that I was always trying to beat my previous training session. Mm-hmm. And I think you had to with the goal of qualifying for Kona. But I was like super committed.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask. So when you went out on those rides, did you guys plan a certain approach to it where you would say, we're going to ride easy here, ride hard here, ride easy here, hard here? Or did you just go out and drop the hammer?
I think Matty Moe maybe had a plan, and again he was more experienced and more knowledgeable. So whatever the plan was that he had, that's what I was following. But I was always looking, first of all, to keep up, and then as the ride progressed, where I could show my ability. I never felt like I was the guy. I always felt like I was the guy trying to keep up. And now, okay, can I show somebody something here? Can I press for this 30-second interval to pick up the pace and enhance the workout, so to speak?
The reason I ask is because I love how this began with, I saw this on TV and I want to do this, to now you're talking about competing.
Yeah.
And so, there's moments where I love how people don't think necessarily and they just embrace the moment and go. And that's what you're talking about. And I think that's, I love that. Like personally, I'm drawn to that. I find inspiration, and I think others, when they're around it, they do as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys probably know a little bit from just conversations we've had. Like you guys as coaches have to be knee deep in the data of your athletes' workouts. For me, and this is exactly what happened in 2014, Chad Holderbaum was my coach. And I mean, everybody knows Chad if you were at all to triathlon in Pittsburgh. And he was a great coach. And when he and I spoke on the phone in it would have been late 2013, about him coaching me, I knew immediately that his knowledge would help me and that I just had to be the hammer. I didn't have to do any of the thinking. And that's exactly how I like it, because if I sort of get too deep into the numbers and the data, it becomes more work for me. It's not as fun. Like, because I'm the athlete. If I were the coach, it would be different, right? But as the athlete, I want you to tell me what to do, and I want you to make sure that you know that I want to be pushed, and then I want to do everything that I need to do on my end, nutrition, sleep, whatever, to take care of myself so I can hammer everything as best as I can.
Boy, exactly what you just said is a conversation I had with one of our runners, Matthew, who is a phenomenal runner, and he made that exact comment to me. He said the biggest benefit is I don't have to think.
Yep.
Like you just feed it and I just do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's the luxury of having a coach, because you don't have to put energy into that part of your improvement. And somebody that's knowledgeable is looking out for you. Yeah.
I could tell you loved it, because when we had that season of swims at the Oxford, he would get so juiced up, and I loved it too, because I knew that was when I was getting ready for Tampa.
Right.
So I was swimming an 8-hour day one time. I had the worst workout ever planned, and I call him and I'm like, "Hey, do you want to do this tomorrow?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. What is it?" And I go, "It's 1 hour straight of 25-yard sprints every 30 seconds." He's like, "Yeah, it's great. Let's go." And he was so fired up. And we did it at, like, I think at that point the indoor pool was closed. So we were outside and it was dark, steams off the water, and we were just hammering them. And but he never backed down from, if you had a workout, he would come, always ready to go. I'd always try to get him like 4 lanes over, because he looks like Marcus Aurelius in his like little Speedo. And I'm like, geez, I never tried the NFL team. I did. NBA never called me back. I put my name in the hat for but they didn't want a 5'11" dude that could rebound, shoot, or run. So, but like it was great. I loved having you out there, man. I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, whenever it goes back to the whole family thing, right? And having people to train with, is huge. I mean, and I say that because 90% of the training I've done while I've done triathlon has been by myself, because of the other responsibilities that we all have. But like, if I'm going for a run, I can save 30 minutes by just going out my front door by myself.
Right.
And so a lot of the training that I've done has been by myself. But the periods where I've been able to hitch my wagon to Kenny in the water, or Matty Moe on the bike, or whoever it is, like, I take full advantage of those, and they're very motivating.
Yeah, it's the, man, I don't know if I can do this, but I know we can do this.
Yes, right. And I'm going to give everything I can to try to keep up. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was always like I said, I loved it for me, because some of them were intimidating, the long ones. But knowing I had someone that was going to go into battle with me and would figure it out, in studying stuff that you were doing in the water. Like, there were drills that you were doing that I got better. And then, you were part of that race, and that started our friendship. I mean, I was, honest to God, God's timing is so weird at times, because I am very talented in one arena, and that's going to be that closeness, bringing people together, the community, recruiting, going after them. And I think I said to him after Mighty Moraine, I will have Ben Erdeljac at one point in something we do, because there was something that you attracted me to you, the way you spoke, the way you carried yourself, the way that you went about your business. And I was like, I want to be wherever that guy's at. So when you were trying to find your own way, there were other people just by you showing up doing it that were literally like, wherever he goes, I want to make sure I'm there, because you just had that about you. And that's what I always loved and respected. And I remember the day we were sitting there, that was the 70.3 that Joella had, one of her maybe last ones. And I think you either top 10'd it, maybe won something. And I said, I'm like, one of these days, he doesn't know it yet. We're either getting him into reaction, AMN, and it sure enough happened to be victory. And it was just the coolest moment, because the time wasn't right then. The time was right for us now, and to rekindle that friendship, and to dig it deeper, do workouts together, have you light up some of our athletes. Like, the value you have just by being Ben is huge. Without you even coming to things, knowing he's in this with us. And that's the kind of the cool thing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I mean, it's an honor to be a small part of victory. I'd love to be a bigger part of it, but family, work, all that stuff, but it is an honor to be part of victory. It's an honor to be doing this podcast with you guys. Yeah. It's a true honor.
Well, we're here for you, Ben. Right? And so anytime you have time, or it's the right timing for something new, you let us know. There's space, there's a lane, there's stuff to do, there's places to go, there's people to impact in victory and around victory. That's just going to be for you whenever that time is.
I appreciate it.
So we got a couple other things, but I think we're going to have to probably bring you back for a part 2.
Sounds good.
For those. We want to talk more about your Kona run for sure. That's probably the pinnacle of what we want to get out, get that story out of you. And a couple other things about Blue Skies, and kind of taking it from now you're in this Blue Skies deal, and where did that take you?
Yep.
So if that's okay, we'll do a part 2 on this podcast. So for Coach Scott and Coach Kenny, thanks for sharing what you did about your history and just the nature of your character. We really appreciate it. We've always known it, we've always seen it, but now to be able to put it in the podcast and put it out to the world, I think it's just going to make it even more magnetic, that people want to be around you and be part of what you have, what you do and how you are. So thanks very much for sharing with us, Ben.
Thank you.
All right. So for our listeners, thank you for listening to the very first episode of season 2 of the Victory Multisport podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. We're also putting this out on YouTube if you'd like to watch us talk to each other. So thanks again. Talk to you soon.